Wow. Bo Wolf. Come here, Bo.
Come on in, Bo.
Yeah. The Eagles traded.
Wow.
We need a breaking sounder.
Yeah. I think I might have something.
Kenyon
Trade
Green.
him to the Texans. Waiting for the full details. Here we go. No, we don't have it yet.
CJGJ.
On in a sec. Here we go. What do we got?
Oh, man. CJGJ traded. Here it is. It's Schefter.
Are
So
you
the
kidding?
Eagles are trading C.J. Gardner-Johnson and a 6th-round pick to the Texans for Kenyon Green, who is an interior offensive lineman, and a 5th-round pick. I think that tells you they were sort of tired.
Yeah.
They had enough.
Yeah.
Of the C.J. Gardner-Johnson.
Yeah. They're like, CJGJ, bye-bye.
Now Slay might come back.
You take your mouth. What is the deal with Slay, Bo? And you might as well put Zach up.
I'll bring Zach up, yeah.
Let's bring Zach up and get a conversation going. Zachariah!
Oh, VG, you don't have to leave.
No, he's just getting the mic. Zachariah!
I'm here. I'm here. You got me?
Yeah, I got you.
This is free agency, baby.
This is free agency. This is amazing. Hot off the presses, CJGJ moved. Zach, your initial thoughts?
Yeah, so I thought the C.J. Gardner-Johnson contract was something that was going to be lingering behind the scenes, but the Eagles obviously get ahead of it. Kenyon Green, a former first-round pick, actually, if you remember the year when the Eagles made the Jordan Davis trade, that was, the Texans ended up taking Kenyon Green that year. But this is an interesting move for the Eagles. Kenyon Green was a highly regarded prospect coming out of Texas A&M. I know, the Eagles like, Sidney Brown. They have Reed Blankenship, but C.J. Gardner-Johnson, someone who played really well for the Eagles, I thought brought this competitive toughness, the competitive swagger that was beneficial. But I also think that he wanted some work done on his contract, or that's something that you heard might be the case behind the scenes. Eagles getting ahead of it here, but still kind of piecing it together. This is an interesting move. I mean, on the surface, you would rather an offensive lineman than a safety, right? I mean, a good O lineman is more valuable than a good safety.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to see what the next step is for C.J. Gardner-Johnson here. Obviously, this would also signal that Mekhi Becton wouldn't be coming back, right?
That was my next question. This tells you that Becton's going to go.
Now, Kendrick Green, to be fair, is a guy who has lost jobs in the past. He was traded from the Steelers to the Texans. Wasn't a
No. You're thinking of Kendrick Green. This is Kenyon Green.
Oh, I am completely wrong. You're right.
Yes, Kenyon Green.
Same team.
Yeah, Kenyon. Yeah, this is Kenyon Green was the 15th overall pick in the 2022 draft. He's someone who he started at left guard in 22, was out the 23 season with an injury, played 9 games or started 9 games last year. Now, granted, the Texans' offensive line really struggled last year, right? I mean, they just traded Tunsil, but Kenyon Green he's 23 years old. He turns 24 he turns 24 this week. So he is a young player on a rookie contract. One thing Bo and I have been talking about is, and I talk about this with you too, Anthony, is you can't have 5 starting offensive linemen on major on 8-digit contract deals. So Kenyon Green would still have he's entering the 4th year of his rookie contract here. It makes sense from the cost perspective, whereas C.J. Gardner-Johnson you are probably looking at for 1 more year with the Eagles.
Now, the one other thing I would say, now obviously the Eagles need to fill in that safety position. Could be Sidney Brown. They
love Sidney Brown.
But they could think this is a free agency spot to pop in on. That could be part of their calculus. Guys still out there, Justin Reed, obviously Spags knows very well. Yeah. Justin Simmons, who's obviously older but has that Vic Fangio experience. Rayshon Jenkins is older. Marcus Epps, old friend. Xavier Woods. Julian Blackmon would be the other guy that I would consider. Has some sort of free safety ability, but I am curious. The Eagles made such a big deal about the toughness that C.J. Gardner-Johnson brought to that defense. I wonder how they will feel about having to backfill that.
That's a great point because he was that kind of – he had swag, and he brought swag to that defense. That's the one thing he did. That he had a good year. He had a really good year. But I'm with you on Kenyon. I like that move. Welcome to Statland U, son. And, this is where a Statland gets his hand on guys. A kid like him, he could turn into a player.
Yeah, and you would have to think that this is also their calculation on the draft class itself. Maybe there's nobody they love in the first and second rounds, and so this is the guy who they view can sort of step in.
Yeah. Well, certainly at least as a backup.
Yeah.
To fill that spot.
Wheeling and dealing.
This is amazing. Yeah. Hey, Zach, let me ask you a question about Slay. So Slay's not allowed to sign until June 1st, right? Post June 1st.
No. He's allowed to sign. Once he's officially released, he's allowed to sign. The Eagles designated as a post June 1st release. So Slay's allowed to sign, but Slay hasn't officially been released yet. So once Slay's officially released, he can sign, and then the Eagles would get the cap savings post June 1st.
Right. But I'm just curious, just for housekeeping, there's no chance that he comes back, right?
I mean, I suppose if the transaction hasn't matriculated yet, then there's a chance, but he's not coming back at that salary. So what they could do is they could try and turn right. My guess is at the start of the league year, that's, because he wouldn't be cut until the start of the league year, post June 1st. You can't designate it until that. So when they announce it, they basically allow his agent to start talking to teams, and then start of the league year, they cut him with the post June 1st designation, because you can't cut someone post June 1st designation before the start of the league year.
Right. But you can sign and designate it. Like for Slay,
Slay can sign.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the difference is with trades, you have to wait until after June 1st to make a trade for someone who you're trying to get the cap savings post June 1st.
All right. So let's think about this for a second. Let's stay in the secondary. So Rodgers, that was the one guy that I went, all right, we expected Slay to get an offer somewhere. Rodgers was the one guy I have a little remorse.
Yeah, I don't think that was a crazy contract either.
Right.
$7.5 million would have made sense to them. I think it tells you how they feel about Keely Ringo, don't you?
Yeah. Listen, Zach, you and I talked about this. They love Ringo. They've always loved Ringo. Yes. I liked Ringo from what I've seen, and what I've heard. But I still, the depth is a big deal.
Well, that's right. It went from a position of real strength to now it's a pretty thin position. Right, you lost two guys, and so I do think they're going to add somebody. Maybe they sort of wait and see how the market comes to them. There are still some veteran corners out there.
How do you feel about Ricks, Zach?
I mean, I like the size-speed combination. I prefer Ringo to Ricks. I actually liked Ricks as a rookie more than in camp last year. I didn't think he made the necessary jump last year. This will be year 3. We'll see. I mean, the Eagles kept him around for a reason. He's someone who the Eagles buried in terms of they kept him inactive for most of the games when they had a healthy roster because they did not want to release a young corner. So Ricks will be in the mix, but I agree with Bo. I think they're going to add a veteran corner. I would say not someone to start over Ringo, but someone to compete with Ringo.
Yeah, which would make sense.
Rasul is the guy who does jump out. Rasul would be fun to bring him home.
Yeah.
And he's a perfect fit for the defense.
Yeah,
he's physical. He's got good ball skills in zone coverage. He is maybe, to Zach's point, a little too good for Ringo to have to beat him out. But if the price is right, I wouldn't turn it down. Plus, he is 30, so you're probably baking in some injury possibility anyway.
Is Bradbury still on the team?
No, he was released.
He was released. All right.
You want to bring him back?
Well, so he's similar to Slay in that I think that process is at the start of the league year. To circle back to the CJ trade, one thing that, and again, there's a lot of time before the season starts, but to the point that we're talking about with Keely Ringo and some of these other guys, one thing I have been hearing is the Eagles want to give Sidney Brown a chance to try to play, and now I think it's probably similar to the Ringo situation where you're going to want a veteran there to
only because of his injury history. You have to.
Yeah, but I don't think they totally want Sidney Brown to be blocked. Now I admit I didn't think they were going to trade CJ, but I thought they were going to have to. I thought they were going to have to extend CJ this offseason because I did hear that contract was something that could come to a head. I'm surprised that this happened as quickly as it did, which probably suggests that behind the scenes there was a push for a deal. The Eagles only, they've been pretty clear about the fact that they're paying big money to a lot of guys, right? They have to decide who they're paying money to. And a new CJ deal, my guess, would probably take them beyond what they were looking to spend at that position. So you're able to turn that into a guard. I'm not saying it's a good deal or bad deal. I obviously have to do more work on it, but my understanding is this kind of has to do more with reconfiguring some of the salaries and trying to get
the
a
allotment,
sense of,
position allotment.
Because like you look at what the D tackles got yesterday. The Jalen Carter deal next year is probably going to start with a 3 in front of it, right?
Yes.
In terms of like the annual per year.
The thing to keep in mind with Sidney Brown, we talk about sometimes the tension between who the front office likes and who the coaches like. We got to keep in mind, he came in the middle of the season from being injured, but when he came back, Sidney Brown was the 4th safety. He was behind Tristan McCollum in Vic Fangio's eyes, and then they moved Avonte Maddox to safety at 1.2. So Sidney Brown has not yet earned Vic's trust on defense.
How much of this has to do with it coming back from the injury, and really what kind of football shape you're in?
I think that's probably a lot of it, and we know that Vic likes to see those guys play and how much he cares about practice.
Yeah.
And so in the regular season, when you're not able to practice,
it's hard.
It would be very difficult to earn Vic's trust, but still he hasn't.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's a good point. That's a real good point. All right, let's move up through the second level, and
we got some more cornerback names. Asante
No,
Samuel
I just
Jr.
looking at, oh, you do? Yeah.
Asante Samuel Jr. is out there.
I saw
Christian
his name
Fulton,
floating around.
Eric
Jr.
Stokes has the Georgia background. He is sort of the level of like Keely Ringo should be able to beat him out.
Yeah. That's interesting. So how do we feel? We knew that they were going to lose Sweat and Milton Williams, and there was like no remorse whatsoever. I don't know. I mean, I look at it and go, you expected to lose them. I think both guys. Not that I wish them well, but I'll be honest with you, I think they got a lot of money, more money than I would pay them.
Yeah. Now, in Milton Williams' case, that is more money than I was expecting him to get. I thought he was going to be the highest paid non-quarterback in free agency. I did not think I didn't think it was going to get up to the 26 million range. That's the nature. And look, I give Milton credit in that he hit the market. In a down year, he really got paid. Those weren't waters the Eagles were swimming in. When it comes to Milton Williams, I think he's a good player. I think that you tend to get overpaid in free agency. That's the nature of hitting the open market. I think the Eagles are going to miss Sweat more than they're going to miss Milton Williams. And the reason I say that is because I actually think they have some internal options at D tackle more than they have at edge rusher. I want to see how this edge rusher picture comes into play. I don't know if obviously they're not playing a game tomorrow, but they really need help in that position. You're replacing 60% of the snaps at edge rusher with Josh Sweat. He's someone who's good against the run. He was a productive pass rusher. Sweat's contract, I didn't think the Eagles were going to pay Sweat. I think both sides were ready to move on. But I think that's one where they need to have an adequate replacement because I don't think they have the in-house options there that they need at this point.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I wouldn't have paid him. I think you like him more than I do. I think a lot of that group like first of all, Carter and Nolan having those two, the way Nolan came on helped. Look, Sweat's a terrific player. I mean, if that knee thing never happened, who knows? He could have been a great player, right? And he turned out to be a very good player. But I don't know. I was never a huge Sweat guy.
I was.
I know you were. I know you.
Yeah.
What do you think of Hunt?
I really like J.X. Hunt. I think J.X. Hunt has the frame. He progressed more this year than I anticipated. I thought it was going to be like a redshirt year for J.X. Hunt. Now, part of this was because Bryce Huff wasn't as good as they needed him to be. But I really like the way J.X. Hunt progressed, and I think J.X. Hunt is absolutely going to be part of a 3 or 4 man rotation next year on the edge. I just think that if you're expecting it to be Nolan Smith and Jalen Hunt and then like a journeyman veteran, I don't think that's good enough there. I think there needs to be a material addition to that edge rushing group. But I'm with you on Jalen Hunt, and I think that I'll take a mea culpa on that one in the sense that when they drafted him in the 3rd round last year, I was saying, I like the idea of it, but they were passing up on some more established play or some players I thought could help them quicker. They were right. Jalen Hunt had more of an effect his rookie year than I anticipated.
What do you think?
I think I agree with Zach. I was very impressed with Jalen Hunt.
No,
as he came on. I mean, in the Super Bowl, he was shoving guys around. He's running right over Joe Tooney.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I asked VG because I was like kind of gussing over the kid.
Yeah.
Just little flashes. I'm like, damn, he's a player.
He's strong. He's really strong. I think the arrow is pointing up, but I do agree with Zach that they need somebody else there just to feel.
Well, I gotta believe at some point somebody's going to get cut that they're going to have interest in.
Yeah. Draymond Jones, Zach has done a good job pointing out there's a Vic Fangio connection. He's got inside-outside versatility. Would make sense as a guy who you could sign.
It's a good name, Zach.
And then let the draft sort of come to you. Draymond Jones could backfill whichever position you don't get in the draft. Would make a lot of sense. The other thing to keep in mind with on the edge, not to knock on wood, but Nolan Smith is such a violent player.
Yes.
And his frame is such that I think there's a little bit of a concern that there could be some injury, likeliness there. It happened in the Super Bowl, right? He's been banged up. I think that's something that they need to keep in mind.
So CJGJ has tweeted, "I love you, Philly. We forever champions."
Hey, right back at you, CJGJ. Zach, when you look at we talk about Huff, what's the plan with him?
A hope. I mean, honestly,
Man, Zach gives you that.
Yeah, but they have to have some sort of plan. Like you got to figure out it's a ton of money. You got to figure out, can I salvage this dude? Is there a way to salvage it? I mean, obviously Fangio doesn't say it, but is there any kind of off-season where have you talked about that? Talked to them about him?
Yeah. So I mean, Howie said the book's not closed. The book's not closed on it. That there's still a lot to be written there. I think that might be a bit of wishful thinking. I'm not sure he's the best fit for what Fangio wants to do.
No.
He played more in that wide 9 front, when he was with the Jets. And I think he's probably more productive as a designated pass rusher in that system than the way he was expected to be used with the Eagles. It was a projection. And by the way, I liked the signing when they made it. So I can't act like I knew this was going to happen after the fact. They talk about how he was affected by the hand injury last year. But by the way, this goes back to the preseason. Yeah. I mean, he was playing in the preseason last year. He wasn't really making much of an impact in training camp. You kept hearing, well, Hassan Reddick, when Reddick got here going up against Lane Johnson, but then it wasn't translating the game. So the way I view it, I'm not certain Bryce Huff's on the team next year. Now the Eagles would need to take it on the chin if they were to trade him. So I'm not sure that happens, but I don't think they can plan on Huff being a major part of this rotation. I think almost anything you get from Huff is gravy at this point.
I want to circle back to one other thing we talked about, like the nastiness that CJGJ brought to the defense and how they felt like they needed that last year. Yeah. I think what you saw this year is, Zach Bond brings that. Cooper DeJean brings that. Nolan Smith, who, last offseason they didn't know was going to be a big part of the defense. Jalen Carter obviously brings that. I think they don't need somebody to bring that on their own as much
I agree.
as they did a year ago.
To your point, I think you're spot on with that. And also, if what Zach was saying about reworking his deal, you're just not going to do it. Yeah. It's the same way. And this brings me to tight end because it's the same thing with Goddard in the sense that they don't want to pay him. Like, this is his time to get paid, and clearly they don't want to pay him.
Yeah. I think they don't want to pay him beyond this year.
Right.
Most especially.
And if you're Goddard, you go, well, now's my chance. Now's my contract.
Right. But the difference is they don't have a Sidney Brown on the roster.
Well,
when it comes to
that's why I'm bringing this up.
Yeah, I think if they feel that good about the draft class that they are sure that they're going to add somebody, that's one thing. But they don't have an answer for what's going to look what the roster is going to look like if they do trade him.
Well, and here's my question to you guys because it's similarly, they don't want to pay him. There's already talk about the 4th round pick and trying to move him. We know that this draft is rich in tight ends. Baldy and I were just talking about Mason Taylor, who I think would be a great fit. He's a terrific. I'm a big fan of Mason Taylor. You saw him play. You were down there live.
Yeah, and he had a big game when I was down there live. I liked Mason Taylor. I will say though that history is not kind to rookie tight ends. Now Brock Bowers had a historic season last year, but typically speaking, especially when you look at second and third round, I think the Eagles would need to have a better plan than just drafting someone to kind of take over for Goddard. There are different things they can do. I would keep paying attention to the trade market. Howie is good at obviously navigating the trade market, but they get an extra 5th-round pick yesterday in this swap of CJG in this Gardner-Johnson swap. They move up from the 6th round next year to the 5th round next year, so they're getting a few more trade assets here that they already have an extra 3rd from Hassan Reddick last year. So I can see the Eagles continuing to try to navigate the trade market, in particular looking for players on rookie contracts, and because they are pretty cognizant.
Let me ask you a question about Michael Mayer with the Raiders. Like that seems to be a possibility. They got Bowers there. You don't need Mayer, and he's a kid that had a little promise to him.
This is another Zach call.
Yeah, and I think those are the kind of guys who I think Howie would look at, and that's similar, by the way, to acquiring Kenyon Green.
Plus, you get an Irishman. You get a Notre Dame.
Yeah, and this is we've joked about it at times, but Howie likes to kind of look for former high draft picks who maybe need a change of scenery. Kenyon Green is an example of that. Michael Mayer would be an example of that. And what you're looking at in those cases is kind of like a depressed asset. A guy who cost you a 1st-round pick 2 years ago. If you get him for a mid-round pick, or if you get him for a veteran, like in the Kenyon Green case, that's a trade Howie typically tries to make. But there's often too a reason why that guy's not productive where he's been, and so you have to identify, like, what do you see, what do you know that the team that has him in the building doesn't, and it's a gamble. It's an absolute gamble when you try to make these types of trades. So I liked Michael Mayer coming out. I thought actually Michael Mayer was productive as a rookie, but then I was surprised when they took Brock
quarterback
Bowers.
play, mind you, with bad quarterback play. Carr was terrible.
So that's something that you kind of have to keep in mind there. But I do think it's imperative, if they do move on from Dallas Goedert, what's your plan at tight end? Because I don't think it's
by the way, real
say,
quick, Daniel Jones to the Colts, $14 million deal.
Okay, so he'll compete with Anthony Richardson there.
But that's a good example of why a team would trade for Kenny Pickett, because Kenny Pickett and Daniel Jones are not that different, and one guy's making $2.5 million and the other guy's making 14.
Yeah, I'd rather have Daniel Jones.
So would I.
I hate Daniel Jones, but I'd rather have Daniel Jones.
But would you rather have Daniel Jones or Kenny Pickett and $12 million?
I hear you.
Daniel Jones.
I'd rather have Daniel Jones. I can't do this guy as my quarterback.
Burger King hands.
I can't do it. I'm sorry.
I'm with you.
I was so happy they got rid of him. I hated Kenny Pickett. I hated him. I couldn't stand him. I hated him at Pittsburgh. I can't stand him. I was like so happy.
He's a nice guy.
Great guy. God bless him.
Did you see the photo of the handshake goodbye? Kenny and Jalen Hurts. Pretty good.
Show it to him.
Hey, Zach, that's pretty good.
Tanner McKee, baby. I love Tanner.
I love McKee.
Yeah.
That's
Zach, you got to be happy. You're a Tanner man.
Based on what I saw last year, Tanner McKee outplayed Kenny Pickett during the summer. He outplayed Kenny Pickett during the season.
Yeah.
But I did understand why they wanted someone with starting experience. I thought it made sense, though, to move on from Kenny Pickett. They did better in that trade than I thought. I thought they should go after a 6th, or maybe try to move up from like the 5th to the 4th round. They got a 5th, and then they get a project quarterback in there. I actually thought Howie did decently in that deal relative to what I anticipated it being.
Hey, Zach, do you think they now extend Blankenship?
Yeah, I think that would be the move here, is to kind of have Blankenship as kind of your core guy, or as one of your core guys there, just to give you a sense of security at safety. I can't imagine Blankenship would cost you that much. But they don't really need to bring Blankenship's cap number down this year, so maybe it's not like the top order of business, but just in kind of their long-term bookkeeping, it's something to think about. I would also, I think Bo hit on the head at the top is that they might look at it like it's easier to find a safety on the open market right now than it is to find a guard. You look at what guards are being paid.
True.
Kenyon Green, like I don't want to make it seem like Kenyon Green is the answer here. But I will say that when you're able to get a 24-year-old former first-round pick who's on a contract when Aaron Banks is getting paid, what, $18 million on the open market? Like it's a better bet in a vacuum to get the O lineman than it is to get the safety, because you can find safety. But to that point though, CJ Gardner-Johnson was elite at turning over the ball. Like you saw the 2 years he was on the team, he forced turnovers, and the Eagles don't necessarily have that with their secondary as it is now. But Vic Fangio, I always kind of thought that CJ was more of a Howie signing than a Vic Fangio signing when they made it. And, I think Vic going into year 2 probably has a better idea of what he wants out of that defense.
Well, and here's the other thing, too. They obviously know Becton's gone, right? So that is a huge deal because you needed that depth position there. And having Stoutland is such an advantage, right? Because guys like Kenyon Moore come in, and all of a sudden it's like the light bulb goes off with a guy like Stoutland.
It's also like a self-perpetuating thing for them, where like they send this message to the rest of the league.
It's genius.
That if you are a super talented offensive lineman who has had some ups and downs earlier in your career, come here. Rebuild your value, and then go get paid. We are the place to come.
The Stoutland works this one because Kenyon Green in 2002 graded 83 out of 84 guards. He was hurt 2023, and last year he graded 78th out of 79 guards. So if Stoutland makes this work, he's better than Michael Carbonaro or whatever that magician's name is.
Our Parks magician. All right, so just to put a bow on this, you like how I did that? You like the trade so far? You like the trade? You're for the trade? You understand the trade?
I understand the trade. And look, Kenyon Green, the Eagles brought him in on a top 30 visit back in 2022. Like they had legitimate interest in Kenyon Green as a first-round pick in 2022. And so it's not that long ago. It's actually, like I said, the Jordan Davis trade, Houston ended up taking Kenyon Green with that pick. I like the process of trading the 28-year-old safety for the 24-year-old guard. But the 24-year-old guard has to be good, number one. And I want to see kind of what your plan is at safety. I do know that Sidney Brown is, and it might be optimistic, but Sidney Brown is a part of this calculation. That they want Sidney Brown to have a chance to play. I was curious, frankly, during the past week or two, if it was going to be at nickel. That was something that it didn't seem Vic Fangio was really interested in a year ago, was having him at nickel. But now if a safety spot opens up, and from Bo was talking about kind of like the CJ Gardner-Johnson playing style. Sidney Brown's someone who, in theory, should have that type of toughness, the physicality, the play. He is a maniac out there, right? Yeah. I got to think that they wanted to find a way to get Sidney Brown on the field. This is a bold trade. This is absolutely a bold trade. But I don't think – I thought going into the offseason they had to make a decision, extend CJ Gardner-Johnson or I don't want to say trade him. I wasn't thinking that, but I was thinking like they needed some type of resolution with CJ Gardner-Johnson, because I had heard rumblings that he wasn't necessarily thrilled with like this juncture of his deal.
Can I ask you one other possibility?
Yeah.
What if they want to make Cooper DeJean the best safety in football?
Wow. But the value of
safeties get paid more than nickels do, right? Now, I don't think that that's what the deal is, but I think that's like, if you're just thinking about all the different timelines of what could happen, that is something that is in the back of their mind as a possibility. Probably not next year, but like Okay, let's say City.
You're,
we give City
you're
Brown a
gonna
chance.
need, you're going to need him on the outside next year.
Probably, but then I mean they're so rarely in base that he's going to be inside in nickel anyway.
Yeah.
That maybe when they go to base, instead of bumping him outside,
They
you
put
bump
him
him
at
to
safety.
safety, and Sidney Brown or whoever comes
Listen,
off the field.
I love Cooper, right? So I love him in the middle of the field. I listen, the value of an outside corner is, we know it.
Totally.
But I just think he's such a difference maker in the middle of the field with his physicality, his speed, his read on the ball, his ball play. I mean, I would love that. I'll be honest with you, Bo. I would love that. Now, I know it goes against kind of every, roster building metric, but
Safeties are valuable. Safeties get paid.
Listen, it's one of my favorite positions.
Would you rather have the 20th
It.
best outside corner in football or the best safety in football?
Listen, it's a great point you bring up. He plays a rover back position. That last year he played a rover back position is what he did, and I
mean,
think
his ability to weave through traffic is unbelievable.
Yes.
And he's so physical.
He is. I love that. He's so fast.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm down. I love that, Bo.
The exciting white safety tandem.
I love that kid. I want him on the field, the middle of the field, because I just think it makes my defense. You don't have to convince me. Bo? Zach?
Yeah, I mean,
I knew it. I knew you would go there.
I understand it
because it goes against the metric. I'm with you.
I understand it in theory. I would rather have Cooper DeJean as my outside corner than as my safety. I was thinking he'd be a safety if he didn't work at corner. But I know he can be a real good slot. I think he can be a high level outside corner. I'd be more apt to do that than put him at safety.
I get. We just got done saying how much I get that position. The only thing about him in the middle of the field, Zach, he's just so valuable, man. He's such a great tackler. He shrinks the field on you.
Sure. Yeah. No. I hear your point.
Oof. It's tough,
but
it really is tough because he's got so much skill. He's got so much skill.
It's good to have options. It's good to have options. The one thing I'll say at safety is that, I stand by my feeling that they're going to give Sidney Brown a shot. Yeah. But if you're thinking about the draft,
I think you're right. I think.
But if you're thinking about the draft, one guy to watch now is Malachi Starks, who he's a safety from Georgia.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Tested really well.
Yeah.
High level production. Daniel Jeremiah, who used to work with Howie Roseman, even had the Eagles taking Malachi Starks at 32 in a mock draft recently. If that's kind of the range that he's in, I'll defer to Fran on this, but he's considered one of the top players in the draft in terms of just the film, right? Yeah. And he would only be available that late because of the position that he plays. But Malachi Starks, when you look at the success the Eagles have had with that Georgia defense, he was a day one. He was a true freshman starter at Georgia. So he's someone that I wouldn't rule out Malachi Starks at 32.
He's a playmaker, dude.
Want to address that.
Starks a playmaker, big time playmaker. Yeah. I'm down. I just love the idea of having the optionality and the versatility of it.
Sure.
Anyway, I love this. This is great stuff. Man. Thank you,
You know what's fun about this is we talk about this. The framing of this part of the football season is the only time when the teams tell us the truth.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like they can lie about all the other stuff. Even in the draft, they're not in full control. It's about who falls to you. This, the whole league is open to them. They can do whatever they want, and they're telling us that they were just sort of tired of a CJ Gardner-Johnson experience.
And didn't want
to. To Bo's point there, and I don't want to be hypocritical. I will defend CJ Gardner-Johnson because I love that playing style. I love that competitive toughness.
Too, Bo. Exactly.
He will be on the fifth. He will be on his fifth team in 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay, think about that. He'll be on his fifth team in 5 years. So there are 4 teams now who've had him and have been willing to move on from him. And so that's not to defend. That's not. I think the Eagles are a better team with CJ Gardner-Johnson than they are without him. But the league has kind of spoken about some parts of this that is part of the CJ Gardner-Johnson experience.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got these guys here because I was going to ask them off the air. Someone I think would be fun here, Kyle Juszczyk.
Oh,
fullback action here. Any hopes?
Well, the Eagles, I mean, they did experiment with the fullback last year. Kari Blasingame, Ben Van Sumeren. I don't know. Crazier things have happened.
A boy can dream.
Yeah. I don't see it enough in their offense, but you never know. Maybe the offense is evolving as well.
Yeah. This is great stuff. I love this. Thanks for coming in, Bo. Man, this is all. I love this, man. Yeah, this is great stuff. Now, what's on tap for you guys today?
Well, we got the draft show at noon with Fran Duffy, and then we're live at 2 o'clock for the regular Eagles show. But I think we're going to have to do an emergency pod in about 20 minutes to talk about this trade.
Well, to save you the work, I think you cut this segment off and make that the emergency pod.
Okay. Yeah, that works.
Because instead of you just having to regurgitate everything.
There's a whole YouTube, like we'll steal some views this way if we do a new one where the people can come watch.
But I don't know algorithms.
This is good conversation.
I don't know algorithms, but all I know is I enjoyed the hell out of the last half hour, man. Being the four of us chopping it up as the news happens.
Fantastic.
I mean, I love it. I'll be honest with you. I thank you.
Of course.
I enjoyed the hell out of this.
It was a lot of fun.
Man. Are you kidding me? Having you guys. First of all, I love working with you guys.
We love working with you.
You know, I enjoy the real football experience, right? VG could tell you.
You like football? Nah.
No, you know what I'm saying. You get it.
Hey, Fit Dad Dev.
What do you got, bro? What are you doing, bro?
We got some super chats, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. We got one
super chat!
We got one from Vince. He's asking, does this move...
Vince? Our Vince?
Our Vince. He says, does this move
He's the greatest.
Does this move Starks up the board for the Eagles?
Oh, Zach addressed that already.
Yeah.
You must have got that in before, Zach. Did you see that,
You're
Zach?
sharp, Vinny.
I
You're
did
a
not see
smart
it.
guy, Vinny.
I did not see it.
Legit.
I don't know if it moves Starks up the board, but I think what it does is you might have a better chance of finding a safety in that 25 to 50 range than you would, a real good offensive lineman in that 25 to 50 range. And again, I don't know how the board's going to fall, but typically that's a good time to find safeties in that like 25 to 50 range.
Yeah.
We got
also to keep Vince. I want to make sure that I keep Vince happy and all of us happy with this is make sure you subscribe to be a diehard on allphly.com. We got a sale right now, $36.
Head of content was just coming in to make sure you said that.
$36 for the year. You get to read all our coverage. We're going to have breaking, we'll have reaction to this. Charlie O'Connor's Flyers coverage, our Sixers coverage, Fran Duffy's draft coverage. It's such a great deal. Take advantage of it now, $3 a month.
Yeah, that's great stuff.
We got Fit Dad CEO with a super chat. He says, I still think the Eagles will go get Trey Hendrickson. Just a feeling.
Huh. Boys?
That would really surprise me.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a little bit older.
Yeah.
He's going to cost a lot of money.
Yep.
And pick.
Yeah.
It feels like a stretch for me.
Yeah.
He's also not the ideal fit for Fangio's defense, but I mean, he is also like one of the three best pass rushers in football.
Yeah.
So, I'm not going to turn. I would be surprised.
I would be surprised.
I think Azeez Ojulari is more of a possibility than Trey Hendrickson, if I'm being honest.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I would agree with that. This, boys, fun stuff. Keep it right here on PHLY. Zach and Bo, you guys are the best, man. Great work.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, cuz.
Thanks, boys. There they are.
All right.
Zachariah and our man, Bo Wolf.